Was good, yeah. Today we'll be going over team building theory, and that includes how do you place or how many units do you take with what healer, where do you want to place your units, how many support type units do you need, how many units do you need per phase, and then also about the thing that we need to talk about first is for those that only have one anti-healer, because not everybody has Elowyn, not everybody has Eunomia, and not everybody has the Somi. For those of us that are only running around with a Midan, there is a way to do 30,000 on Apocalypse 1 without needing to cleanse. And it's not the most accessible way for everyone, but I'ma just give you the basics. I can't quite show you a run because it's really account specific, but I can build together for you a team and then kind of give you the methodology, you know what I mean. So in the basics, you really want to bring around 2 healers just to keep every one of your guys topped off, and then either Dolores or Constance. So 2 healers, or Dolores or Constance, and then for example a tank. We are going to pick Isolde because she has damage reducing capabilities. And then it's all about figuring out who are your hard hitters. Who are your hard hitters? So, for example, let's say you have like a really broad roster, then you could pick someone like Hex together with, let's sort by Piercers. So someone like a Hex together with, for example, a Lunaria and a Sealers. So Hex, Lunaria, Sealers. And then for the other team, you could go the route of going, for example, like Pyrus, Twin Fiend, or Pyrus, Zillitu, Twin Fiend, something like that. So in general, it's all about trying to fit in as much burst damage as possible into their team, because what you're going to do is you're going to go into the fight, play the first phase normally, you play the second phase normally. But for the third phase, you save at the end towards the second phase, you save every single ultimate, and then you want to burst the boss down. You need to do that twice. You need to burst down the boss twice in the third phase so that he only applies poison once. Which means you'll end up with, I believe it's 5 and then it's 7. So after the second poison rotation, you're only going to end up with 12 poison stacks, and that is still something you can survive. So the basic goal is enter the poison phase, one-shot it before he applies another stack of poison, and then do that again. So it's kind of like a higher end-ish strategy, but it is definitely something possible. And the only thing that you're really benefiting from that is obviously that you can then use your Midan to potentially attempt a higher score at Apocalypse 2, because doing Apocalypse 2 without a cleanser is just fucking suicidal. Alright, so here we go. The first teams we're going to go about is kind of like the Midan teams, because everybody has their Midan, and this is true for APOC 1 the same way it's true for APOC 2. Alright, so Midan. This is going to be like the first and I guess the most popular way to play it, and that would be Midan on the right side. Reason for right side is because it always buys you more time. He always chainsaw hits the left side first and then the right side, so you always have more time between getting hit or his charge time taking longer. Then yeah, basically, so right side, and this is position number 1, Midan straight in the middle. You're going to be able to cover exactly, as you can count, obviously excluding Midan, you're going to be able to cover 5 platform tiles and 4 ground tiles. And that's also already where, like, I guess the first limitation comes in a bit, and that is you need to use a lot of ground units. For example, if you want to bring a Hollow, a Vortex, Alistair, Hex, Sealers, you're basically already over. So Midan really needs pretty much a nightmare comp, or at least a comp out of which you have a lot of ground units to use for. So for example, if you're using like Northerners, then you would go Astrid plus Isolde, so you have already 2 ground units, and maybe like an extra Zillitu. But basically this is like the first one. Standard placement, you'll be able to cover exactly 5 extra platform tiles, 4 range tiles, or 4 ground tiles. Number 2 would be down here. So this ground unit here could obviously also be placed on top of here. And what happens in this team though is that this platform unit and this ground unit, they are basically getting hit twice by the chainsaw. So they're going to get hit once and they're going to get hit twice. So there you would have, for example, like a vortex and then like your tank, so that they could also tank it. And the advantage here, I guess, is that you're basically reducing the platform tiles. So you have 4 platform tiles and then you have pretty much all this space to place as many ground units as possible. And obviously nothing is stopping you from taking away this platform and changing it into another ground unit. And then lastly, we have the special scenario, which is if you place Midan on the right side facing upwards, you do get 5 tiles. You also keep this very square tile free where you could perfectly put in a Dolores, but there's a condition. And the condition for this formation is that you have another cleanser. So someone like Eunomia, like Dasomi, because those then need to, for example, support the one guy that you're placing right here or right here, because as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units. We're missing 1 unit that wouldn't get cleansed. So here's kind of like your example of the very first standard formation, because most of the time you really want to use Midan with Rage Regen, because the ultimate does take quite a while, and overall Rage Regen is just a very strong damage buff. And then Vortex just to make sure that pretty much everything else stays alive, which is really, really crucial, especially for APOC 2. Though the good part is Vortex obviously has also a couple replacements. If you're using Vortex on APOC 1, someone like a Cornelian, Fercy, Aelin, the like are going to be able to replace Vortex in that scenario. So this is kind of the way how you cover pretty much everyone. And as you can see, if you already use Vortex and Hollow, you're only left with 3. Only left with 3 platform tiles where you can actually place down units. And that once more shows the reliability that Midan has on you actually placing down ground units. Also, what you can see in this formation is that if you play it like this, you don't really have a space for Dolores, right? If you place Dolores here, you boost basically 3 units. If you place her over there, you boost 3 units. If you place her over there, you boost 2 units. So that is right here, for example, this place where it would be where you would place down your Constance. Now, Constance has obviously 2 modes. If you place her down here, she doesn't attack the boss. She gives a bit worse inspiration to a couple people, but she also heals. If you place her here, she's going to get blocked by the boss and she's never really going to heal outside of her passive. And then we have kind of like this formation we talked about with all a bunch of ground units. So for example, here's your tank, here's then your Vortex. Those 2 are going to get hit quite a lot, but then you can place a Dolores right here, and Dolores is going to boost this tile, this tile, this tile, this tile. So you're basically getting 4 tiles boosted by Dolores at least. Obviously, sadly, only one platform tile. Or you could also place down another ground unit right here. So you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units that actually get boosted. So yeah, that is basically how you can work with Midan. And if you want to know who you can place in those ground unit spots, I do have the tier list if you're unsure of what you have. And yeah, it's really, Midan is really limiting when it comes to how many units you can place. Alright, now on to Elowyn. At Elowyn you have way more flexibility when it comes to team building, I guess, because you do get that extra range. So for example, this Elowyn not only covers everyone here, but would also covers this tile right here and even this tile outside of the map, because she gets that massive Vortex range when she does ult. So she's going to heal behind her. So basically she's going to heal 5 tiles behind her, 5 tiles next to her, 5 tiles in front of her, and then 3 tiles at the very tippity top. So that range is absolutely ridiculous, and there's a lot of things you can do with it. For example, here we have 6 platform units, which should be by far the most platform units you're ever going to be able to place like that. And then 3 ground units, or potentially 5 platform units and 4 ground units. Or here we have 5 platform units with the potential to again go 6 ground units. Or you could even place a ground unit here and then you had 5 ground units while you only have 4 platform units. So there's a lot of things you can shift. And then this is kind of like the most... It really depends on what you have as your support, right? You really have to kind of mix and match. Because for example here, if we face it to the left, we're going to heal everyone right here. And only cleanse those in ult. And then for example have like an Elowyn right here. And then a Carnelian facing up top that heals everyone. So it honestly, it really depends on what units do you have, who do you have built, and also how many platform units do you want to take. For example, in a formation like that, where you place Elowyn more in the middle, Dolores isn't really optimal, so in a formation like this, you would then have this G-spot basically be your constants. And yeah, I guess this is kind of how you shuffle around people, around your Elowyns, around your Doloreses, around your Midans. And now let's talk a bit about team building and what you always require. Alright, and this is basically the most basic of what pretty much every team requires that tries to go for a high score. So double Lord it just makes sense. You don't want to go in with 10 units and then don't have one of your teams being buffed by Lords. You don't want to lose on up to 40% extra stats with epics. And up to 60%, or if you count with the Lord, 75% stats with the legendary. Now, the Lords can be rather flexible, it really depends, but these 5 are like the keywords that you need in every single team. So, you always need a cleanser, you always need a secondary healer or damage dealing whatever provider, because your cleanser isn't always going to be able to keep everyone alive. Especially when they are down on their ultimate for the poison phase. Then you need a damage reduction. So damage reduction is really simple. You either have Volker or Alistair. Those two, because they are the only ones that at the moment have this beautiful minus 30% damage buff. Then you need a source of CC. Once more, Lords could both already be fulfilling the role of a CC. And then you need a tank. And that's kind of like, that's really it. And then, for example, the Lord could be a CC as well as a tank, as well as a Lord, for example, like a Toreador. Or Cyrus could be a Lord and a tank. Leia could be a Lord and a healer. And yeah, that's kind of really the way you should look at this, I guess. So that is like the core of how you put together a team. And then these 3 spots are mainly going to be filled by the ones that bring the pain, by the ones that make the guild boss suffer themselves. So now on to the last one, where I just give you a couple team examples so you have a bit of an idea of what you could build. Alright, so here we are with the first team. Bottom left is going to be kind of like the reference on how you place those units. And the team we have here is going to be Infernal Core at the top. So Pyrosilid to Hex. Constance for the invigoration, because she just fits really well in that spot right there. Can we see the cursor a bit? Yeah, it's alright. It's alright. And then we have Nazim. Nazim, if you give him attack speed, rage regen, and Nightmare Samsara, he's going to be able to ult on every single chainsaw, completely stopping those with 12 stacks. Then we have Isolde as our tank. You could also build Volker tanky and change Isolde to someone else, like another ground unit that deals damage. Then you have Midan, Hollow to rage regenerate Midan, and Vortex to just provide overall healing. Could be swapped to a Thirsty, Carnelian, someone else that provides survivability. Here we have then a Nightmare Core, so Wrath, Volker, Arrogance, Salazar, Lust, with Nazim for the stuns, Midan for the heals, Vortex for heals, Rage Regen right here. You could swap out, for example, Lust against Constance and then run another platform unit, or example for against Dolores. And Nazim is really just the MVP when it comes to stopping those hits. Because right here, as you can see, we're going to have, for example, Volker here with Vortex. They should get hit by 2 chainsaws, but Nazim is really going to just clutch in on those chainsaws. Then we have, again, another Nightmare team, this time with Azor as the tank. So you could also, for example, swap Volker for an Alistair, swap Dolores for a Constance. You could also just take out Azor completely, keep Volker as a tank, change someone else like in Azim. And also in this team, obviously we're running no Lord for Silas and Hex. You could swap Hex to, for example, an Iowa, or you could swap Silas to an Iowa. And we have Elowyn as our healer here, which is why we have one more free spot in comparison to the Midan teams, because Elowyn also provides Rage Regen. And that's already been it. I hope I gave you a bit of an idea of how you can build a team. I really do recommend playing around with it yourself. The raid overall is really fun. There's a lot of viable combinations. There will only be more viable combinations in the future, especially starting with Lucius, where we'll probably see a bunch of Ein or Leia comps potentially. And yeah, I really wish there was an easier way to not have to use Midan for the first stage, but it's really just DPS it until it's dead, and that's pretty much about it. So this has been it, and we see each other in the next one. Peace!